Have you ever thought the Joy-Con sticks are just a bit too short? Their grips too shallow? Their drift too unbearable? Well, Cracked has you covered with their brand new Nitro Deck. This slot-in system is a huge throwback to the WikiPad, and I can tell you up front, solves a lot of complaints I have with using Joy-Cons in handheld mode, while introducing a few more complaints of its own. The plastics in use for the shell feel decently premium, with a smart use of textures on both the grips and the backplate. As I love to see in controllers, the textures are very tactile and contribute to at least the grips feeling a bit better in the hand. Around back, you can also easily see the cutouts where they let the switches fan exhaust, along with a large bar that makes for a great handle. And it kind of reminds me of the Wii U gamepad quite a bit, to be honest, especially in how easy it allows me to just grip the controller from the center. That bar also houses an integrated kickstand, which is honestly way too stiff for my liking, but gets the job done. As well as two USB-C ports right up here, one for input and one for output. Input allows for charging a switch while docked, since the main USB-C port would otherwise be blocked. Meanwhile, the output allows for the Nitro Deck to be used as a wired USB controller, even if not connected to a switch. I'm not sure why two ports were necessary, but they are at least clearly labeled on the controller. Although I would have at least appreciated having the ports at the top of the bar rather than on the underside. If I'm using this as a standalone controller, I'm usually sitting in front of whatever device I'm connected to. The current placement creates this tension on cables in that scenario, which might cause something to break over time. Meanwhile, charging while playing with a docked switch places the charging cable within reach of my fingertips, which can get kinda annoying over time. From my perspective, the port placement here has more to do with aesthetics than actual functionality. When wanting to play, docking either an OG Switch or Switch OLED works extremely well, and feels pretty natural. When wanting to remove the console, there's also this latch around back that releases some clips on the Joy-Con rails. When held, the removal process just requires some awkward pressing down on the switch and sliding out. It never feels the best, but honestly, I'll take a little bit of awkwardness over my Switch feeling loose when docked any day. I've been primarily using this controller with my Switch OLED, and honestly, it frames the tablet's display really well. When I first pulled the Nitro Deck out of its box, I was concerned about how light the controller itself felt, but the weight of the Switch fills it in nicely while making the full combo feel just really solid in my hands. The one downside is actually the size though. One of my favorite parts about the Switch is how compact it is while traveling. The Nitro Deck makes the system just a bit wider, a bit taller, and a bit deeper. It's still nowhere near as problematic as my Steam Deck, but it does mean this isn't fitting into my usual case. Cracked does sell a case that fits their controller for an extra $30, but that's kind of a steep price and will undoubtedly make this combo just a bit bulkier to travel with overall. Still, it's more of an inconvenience than a fatal flaw, considering nothing's stopping me from just swapping out the Nitro Deck for Joy-Cons whenever I feel like it. It just might be something for you to consider if you're someone eyeing this controller as a full replacement for Joy-Cons that have stopped working or started drifting. On that note, let's get into controls. Up front, we have the standard Switch layout, with the most immediately noticeable difference being the illuminated cracked icon for the home button. That light verifies that the controller is receiving power and will flash in different patterns to indicate different operating modes, like a wired connection or reprogramming the extra buttons around back. Out of the box, the light on that button is distractingly bright. Luckily, a simple press of the program button around back dims or turns it off. Each of the face buttons feels firm and definitive to press, with a subdued, clacky sound that makes it obvious when someone's button mashing. On the other side, the D-pad feels nicely designed. There's a small divot in the center that makes for a nice tactile spot to shift my thumb to. Each press feels soft at first with a hard bottoming out, it never feels like I don't know when I have actually made an input, which I quite like. My one issue is that on multiple occasions, I've accidentally pressed right when pressing down. Like a few other controllers on the market, this one seems to have the issue where rocking the D-pad can trigger inputs in other directions. It's something I can adjust to, but I'd rather not have to. Moving on. The sticks on both sides are Hall effect, which should make them far less likely to drift than standard Joy-Cons. Overall, I'm a bit split on how I feel about them though. Like with many third-party controllers, I wish the sticks had just a bit more resistance to them out of the box. Plus, the flat designs of the stick caps work, they're functional, but they don't quite give me the same grip as the sticks on my current primary Switch controller, the Big One Blitz. A potential solution for me might be the fact that Cracked includes the ability to remove thumbstick toppers in their design. To their credit, it's easy to twist them off and just as easy to put them back on. However, at the moment, they don't list replacement sticks on their site. A quick search shows some Elite Series stick replacements, which might work, but it's hard for me to say without ordering those parts, and I'm left feeling that a bit more guidance from Cracked would have gone a long way. Even still, the sticks feel fine in general. Playing across an assorted variety of games, they appear accurate and appropriately sensitive. I haven't been left feeling like I'm missing out by not going with a different controller. Plus, they feel a ton better than Joy-Cons. I think plenty of folks will be more than happy with them. What folks might be less happy about are the shoulders and triggers. Both shoulder buttons are clicky, have a nice matte texture to them, and have uniform input across their length, all of which is fantastic. They're also very loud and clack quite a bit in their shell though, with just the slightest hint of pressure. It's not a deal breaker, but it does feel jarring in contrast to the other, much more subdued sounding buttons on the rest of the controller. The triggers are another oddity altogether. Instead of the nice matte finish they use for the shoulders, they made the triggers glossy, without a noticeable cleft to rest my fingers on. The result is my fingers sliding off if I press just a bit too hard. That might make this controller feel less than ideal for competitive shooters, where an intense firefight might cause more slippage. Adding awkwardness to Crack's trigger decisions is the fact that these are analog triggers. I'd typically prefer the inclusion of analog triggers on a controller. They can be more satisfying to use, while offering a wider variety of use cases. Unfortunately, the Nitro Deck makes the cardinal sin of giving these triggers aggressively short travel and very little resistance once pulled. Both these factors make actually using the triggers for analog input awkward at best, which is kinda weird. All Switch games are designed to work with the Joy-Con's digital triggers. Almost all Switch games can even make use of analog input. Instead of a glossy, subpar analog trigger, Cracked could have easily given us a digital button as similarly clicky as the shoulder buttons. That would have felt great, but for some reason they chose to go with this more compromised route. I guess all of this is to say, while still perfectly functional, the triggers are the weakest point of this controller's design. Of course, I could easily avoid using the triggers in favor of the grip buttons around back, which are mapped to the shoulder and trigger buttons by default. Unlike most third-party controllers I've gotten my hands on, these grip buttons are actually very responsive, clicky, and easy to activate. That's a bit of a double-edged sword though. The extra ease of use has made them actually feel useful in certain games. You know, in Metroid Dread, for example, it feels great to use them to quickly trigger a slide or toggle on rockets. However, I have also experienced quite a few accidental inputs. Holding the Nitro Deck at certain angles, like on my lap, seems to increase the likelihood that my fingers will accidentally hit one of the very sensitive grip buttons. The issue's infrequent enough for it to not be a deal breaker, but I do wish I had the option to either turn off or remove the buttons altogether for games in which they're not useful. Some other features to note: gyro aiming also works about as great as any Pro controller. Given that the controller increases the size of the Switch, it kind of gives the feeling of using a Wii U gamepad for large motion controls. Not too bad. If you're a fan of macros, they're ridiculously easy to program on this controller. I only need to hold down the program button on the back, press whatever button combination I want, and then tap the grip button I want to map it to. Resetting the grip button to its default shoulder or trigger state is the exact same process. Kudos to Cracked for making that so easy. Similar kudos to them for making the default rumble setting subdued and kinda dull. That might sound negative at first, but it's actually quite pleasant, and I haven't felt the need to adjust it any further. Many third-party controllers seem to go overboard with very strong, bad-feeling rumble. It's great to see a controller that doesn't necessarily fall into that trap. The trap they do fall into, though, is omitting amiibo support. Instead, they have an RFID tag around back that I can tap with my phone to record in an app that I actually own this controller. You know, the thing I just paid for and is sitting right in front of me. It's kind of a baffling decision, to be honest. I'm certain amiibo support requires additional licensing fees. However, with the amount of R&D that went into integrating the RFID tag into the controller and developing an app to pair with the controller, I'm sure they could have afforded those fees, even if it made the controller just a tiny bit more expensive. After all, the Nitro Deck is currently $60 for the base editions, aka the ones that have less fun colorways and don't come with a case. That's about $10 to $20 cheaper than a pair of Joy-Cons, so they do have some leeway with price, especially given that the unique form factor brings some value to the table over typical Joy-Con replacements or most other Joy-Con compatible third-party offerings. Let's hope they realize that in future iterations of this controller. Which brings me to the question which underlies all my third-party controller reviews. Is the Nitro Deck better, on average, than buying just a pair of Joy-Cons? When I initially purchased the Nitro Deck, I thought it was going to be an easy slam dunk, since it clearly improves on some of the larger pain points of playing handheld with Joy-Cons. Mainly, their flatness gets uncomfortable quick, half-height sticks that drift over time are kinda annoying, and an actual D-pad is preferable over the Joy-Con's 4-button design. Unfortunately, the Nitro Deck brings some large pain points of its own, including pretty bad triggers, some weird USB-C port placement, and swapping amiibo support for a weird RFID tag. Whether those new issues are more egregious than the problems it solves are very much up to your own personal tastes. For me, the positives do tend to outweigh the negatives. Specifically for use at home, the Nitro Deck makes the Switch feel just a bit more substantial and much more comfortable to hold for hours on end than slotting in a pair of Joy-Cons. Plus, while the stick toppers aren't my favorite, I do prefer them much more than the cramped feeling of Joy-Con sticks. And the same could honestly be said about the rest of the input options, outside maybe the triggers. In the end, I'm just kind of left with this weird feeling that there are brief shines of really thoughtful design in this controller that are somewhat muddled by the trade-offs Cracked decided to settle upon. Based on that, I don't think this is necessarily a must-have device for Switch owners playing handheld, but it is a decent alternative to Joy-Cons and shows the promise that could come with a future iteration of this controller style. Those are my thoughts though. Now comes the time when I ask for yours. Given everything I've said so far, are you interested in picking up a Nitro Deck? Do you have any additional questions about the device you'd like me to answer? Have you already bought one for yourself and have opinions of your own? Let me know down in the comments. As always, if you found this video interesting or informative, go ahead and give it a like, and then get subscribed for more controller reviews in the future. You can also follow Game Data on the various socials on the screen if you want updates about new videos as soon as they're live. If you are someone looking to get their hands on a Nitro Deck, I'll have a link in the description to Crack's website. I'll also have links to a few other controllers I've reviewed in the past, like the stylish Nixie Wizard GameCube Joy-Cons, or my current favorite Switch controller, the big one, Blitz. That's gonna be all for this video though. Until next time, catch you later.